Hey there, and welcome to Write for Joy, the podcast. I'm Renee Long, a creative writer, water baby, and writing coach. I help aspiring creative writers like you create a consistent and procrastination-free writing habit that feels amazing. If you're finally ready to sit down, write, and joyfully finish the stories tugging at your heart, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome to episode 4 of the Joyful Writing Goals series. For the month of January, I am releasing 7 podcast episodes on joyful goal setting for creative writers. This podcast series will take you through every step of the wheel of joyful writing goals so you know exactly what you need to do to start and finish creative writing projects with ease, consistency, and joy. Episode 1 was an intro to my proprietary process, the Wheel of Joyful Writing Goals, aka ICPCS. Episode 2 was all about stepping into the identity of a creative writer in less than 5 minutes a day. And episode 3 was about creating a clear vision for your goal so you're clear on what you want to create and why. As a quick refresher, the Wheel of Joyful Writing Goals looks like, you guessed it, a wheel split into 5 pieces. Starting from the left and going clockwise around, we have identity, clear vision, presence, compassion, and sustenance. For today's episode, we're diving into the third section of the framework, presence. This part of the wheel will help you stop procrastinating from writing by making your goals real, which helps you become a more consistent and motivated writer. Presence is all about keeping your writing intentions front and center. Presence is about being grateful for the journey you're on and noting how far you've come instead of getting deflated by how far you still have to go. All right, but before we dive in, don't forget to download your Joyful Goals workbook for this section. The workbook includes illustrations that can help you visualize this framework, as well as exercises and writing prompts to help you implement the concepts we're covering in this series. So get your workbook at writeforjoy.co/joyful-goals-2023. Again, that's writeforjoy.co/joyful-goals-2023. I'll also link to that page below this episode, so you can just scroll on down there, click that, and get your workbook. A really quick note, I do have a double opt-in on my email, in my email marketing tool. So you'll want to make sure that you confirm that you want to get that workbook. So you'll get an email initially that says, hey, did you download this? Is this what you really want? So make sure you confirm that. Otherwise, my email marketing provider won't be able to send you your workbook. And we don't want that. We want you to have that workbook. All right, let's dive in. All right, so I first want to discuss a little bit about why we procrastinate or quote unquote slack on our writing goals, right? So why do our writing goals seem to get pushed to the bottom of the list? Why do we end up, again, procrastinating on these goals? One of the reasons is that your brain loves clarity. That's why we spent an entire episode creating your clear vision so you know exactly what you're creating and why. Your brain also loves to focus on what's right in front of you right now. This is a survival mechanism, right? It's very, very ancient, coded into our brains. It's what allowed us to survive on the deserts when we were early humans. Your brain needs to prioritize the here and now so it's capable of looking out for hungry lions or saber-toothed tigers, and it's also there to make sure you don't walk off the cliff while you're looking up at the beautiful clouds or trees, right? Your brain is always looking for threats. It's always on alert for what's right here, right now. Your brain is designed to pay attention to immediate concerns, and it's only recently in our human evolution that we've trained our brains to dream of a future and quote unquote future cast, right? And actually set goals. Our way back ancestors were really only caring about getting food, getting shelter, mating and making sure that they didn't get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, right? They didn't really think about the future, right? They didn't really think about their goals and that they wanted to move into a bigger cave, right? And write better cave paintings, right? They were concerned with what was in front of them immediately. And it's only recently in our human evolution that our brains are able to set goals and dream and imagine a future, right? All right. So this is why it feels like washing the dishes or tidying up the living room or answering work emails are more important than spending 25 minutes on writing your novel. That I could even make the argument of like watching Netflix feels more important because it's right there, right? The remote is right there, your TV's right there. It's present and immediate. The dishes, if we look at that, are a problem you can solve easily and right now, right? There's a dirty dish. I can solve that by either putting it in the dishwasher or scrubbing it with a sponge. Your brain loves that immediate satisfaction of this is done, de-threatified or whatever. So answering a text message or clearing your email inbox are immediate tasks you can tick off right now, because that red dot on your email app on your phone is right there, and your phone just keeps chiming and chiming to let you know, here's another email, here's another text. And of course, distractions and procrastination really do those topics really do call for a much more nuanced conversation, and I'll definitely be doing some more podcast episodes on those topics to really dig a little bit deeper into what procrastination and distraction actually is, because there's a little bit of trauma response, there's cultural conditioning, there's wanting to numb out, there's addictive habits, right? But the fact that distraction or procrastination activity is right in front of you and readily available to you is one of the big reasons that laundry or the dishes or work emails are often more likely to get done instead of writing your novel. Right? You're much more likely to answer that work email instead of spend 25 minutes on writing your novel, at least if procrastination is something that you struggle with. All right, so I want to ask you, has this ever happened to you? You set a really exciting writing goal or intention. For example, let's say you've set a goal that's like, it's January and you want to finish a draft of your fantasy novel in the next 8 months. That sounds like a pretty reasonable, cushy goal. I mean, it's stretchy because it's like 8 months can go by fast, but it's also like, I can do that. That seems reasonable. And maybe you start off strong. The first few weeks, you spend every other day outlining and writing for 1 hour. Then maybe you catch a cold or there's a crisis at work you have to take care of. So you skip a few days of writing. And big caveat here, there is nothing wrong with putting a pause on your writing routine to handle some, life crisis that comes up. There's nothing wrong with that. And what we're actually going to be talking about in this episode can help you more easily bounce back into your writing routine when there's a crisis or when you get sick, which really does require you to pause, and that's okay. The things we're talking about in this episode are going to help with that. All right, so getting back to this story. You skip a few days of writing because you caught a cold, then there was a crisis at work, and okay, you get better, crisis averted, but then the week after that, your computer crashes and it needs to spend a week at the repair shop. Oh my gosh, the universe is totally against you, right? I've definitely had these types of weeks and months. It does happen. But you tell yourself, no problem. I'll get back to writing when I get my computer back. Not an issue. A week later, you get your computer back, but at that point, you are out of the groove. You tell yourself, I'll get back to writing when, quote unquote, things calm down. Eventually, June rolls around and it's 2 months away from your deadline that you set for yourself. And you suddenly realize, oh my gosh, I totally gave up on my writing goal. I wanted to have this thing done by August and I only have an outline and one messy chapter written. Oh, I'm such a loser. And you basically forgot or you kept pushing off your writing goal because it wasn't in front of you. Right? What were the things that were in front of you? It was the crisis at work. It was healing from your cold, a broken laptop, the company retreat, your vacation to Napa in April because it was booked, paid for, and on the calendar. All of those things were directly in front of you and therefore they got done, right? And again, I'm not saying, get up to write when you have COVID or the flu or are dealing with a health crisis, or there's a crisis at work that you have to take care of, or to somehow, keep your writing streak if your laptop is broken, although you probably could anyway. What I'm saying is that like you want to bring your writing priority front and center in the same way that these other things are front and center, right? So, okay, let's say you've gotten to this point and you're like, oh my gosh, there's only 2 months to my deadline. This is where the shame spiral enters stage right, right? Enter the shame spiral. And you feel like a total loser and total crap. And you start getting these thoughts in your head. I'm such a procrastinator. I'm not disciplined. I'm great at starting things, but I suck at finishing. I am a total loser. I'm never going to be a writer. But actually, none of that is actually true. At this point, you have finished a lot of things. You weathered that crisis at work. You healed from your cold. You fixed a broken laptop. You took a trip to Napa. You went on a work retreat, or whatever it was that you did that filled your time between January and June. Plus, not to mention all the other life events and responsibilities that we don't actually give ourselves credit for because they're very invisible things. Things like housekeeping, paying the bills, going to the doctor, exercising, socializing, sleeping, eating, making sure you have a house to live in, getting the car fixed. All of these things really, really take up a lot of time, and they are front and center. They're immediate, right? Even just talking about all this gets a little overwhelming, right? And it's because, we push writing to the back of all that because, again, our culture demeans creative work as unproductive. First of all those other things get done because they're top of mind, they're immediate. You have letters and reminders and cultural conditioning telling you that they're important. Whereas our cultural conditioning around creative work is that it's demeaned and it's looked at as unproductive. So of course you're going to put it at the bottom of your to-do list. Of course you're going to do the dishes instead of working on your novel. Of course you're going to prioritize all the things that feel quote unquote productive over creative work, because for our entire lives, we've been told in one way or another that creativity and storytelling are frivolous and not lucrative, right? There's a lot there around, because, and this again is a belief we want to challenge as well, because writing's not going to quote unquote make you money, that it's not worth your time. And artists are always suffering or starving or mentally unwell. And if you watch any movie or even read books about writers, right? They're suffering, they're starving, they're mentally unwell. So of course, you're going to avoid something that comes with all that baggage, that comes with all of those labels. Why would you prioritize writing your novel when there are so many other, again, quote unquote, productive things to do that are actually right in front of you? There's a lot to unpack there about even just the word productive and how our lives are really set up to create product, right? And how maybe that's even a construct we want to question in itself, is that is the value of our lives, are we here to produce or are we here to live? So that's, again, a topic for a whole other podcast. I'm sure I'll dig into that at some point. But overall, we're deprioritizing our writing because we don't believe it's productive. We're deprioritizing our writing because it's not present and in front of us, right? So what do we do? First of all, if you do have any of those beliefs about creativity and storytelling being quote unquote unproductive, or that creative writers are flaky, reclusive, mentally unwell, poor, lazy, and suffering, I want you to go find and make a list of people and writers who prove that isn't true. Not even just writers, you can do artists as well, celebrities, fine artists, musicians, things like that. But if we're thinking about writers, here are a few right off the top of my head who were certainly not, reclusive, poor, lazy, and suffering. We have Maya Angelou. Of course, her story, she had a lot of ups and downs in her life. But I would look at her as one of the most resilient, emotionally strong, just a powerhouse role model who I very much look up to. Madeline L. Engel, same thing, where her life was so rich and so full of so much life and fulfillment that wasn't even necessarily productive. She was very, very in tune with slowing down, laying down on a rock on her land and feeling the sun warm her, right? While also producing so many beautiful works of fiction and nonfiction and creating a life and a family for herself that was really, really rich and beautiful. Shonda Rhimes, definitely not a lazy person, right? Maybe even into the archetype of overworking herself, but we have this kind of construct of writers or artists being lazy and not wanting to work really hard. Shonda Rhimes is one of the hardest working people I think I've ever seen in the industry. Haruki Murakami, he, early on in his writing career, he was living not a really great life. He was running a jazz bar, which he loved, but it was also really hurting his body because he was smoking a lot. He was working nights. He was eating a lot of bar food that wasn't good for him. And he actually took up running and marathon running and ended up like totally turning his life around and living a really, really healthy, fulfilling, wholesome lifestyle. So there are so many role models out there that don't exemplify that flaky, reclusive, mentally unstable, poor, lazy, and suffering archetype that we're really fed in our culture. All right, so that's the mindset piece. And now we want to move into the strategy piece, the presence principle, right? So we talked about how your brain is going to prioritize the things that are directly in front of you. And the presence principle states that by making your writing goal real, tangible, and trackable in the present moment, you are far more likely to achieve your goal. And so there are two major ways you can do this. So I kind of split this up into two elements. So number one, you do this by putting reminders, totems, and tangible signs of your goal into your everyday living space. So you're making your writing goal just as present and real as the email reminders on your phone, just as present and as real as the dishes in the sink, right? As the laundry in the basket. Number two, then you're going to start tracking the progress of your goal and also in a visible and tangible way. So again, the presence principle is all about taking this abstract goal, this very you can't touch it with your hands type of goal, and making it real, making it touchable with your hands. So we're going to talk about how you do that. All right, so the best way I can really explain this is with a Venn diagram. So imagine or draw an empty Venn diagram with two circles. So a Venn diagram is just two circles that overlap in the middle. And if you've downloaded the workbook for this episode, then you already have the visual chart in your workbook because I already created this Venn diagram for you. So if you want to go get the workbook so you can actually get this visual, go to writeforjoy.co/joyful-goals-2023. Again, this way you don't have to draw or imagine the Venn diagram. I've already written it out for you. So you can go get that at writeforjoy.co/joyful-goals-2023. All right, go ahead, pause the episode, make sure to grab that now, or you can totally draw this on your own or imagine it in your mind. All right, so moving forward, the left circle in our Venn diagram is our goal circle, and then the right circle is our progress circle. So if we've got our two circles, on the top of the left one, go ahead and write goal or imagine goal. On the top of the right one, go ahead and write progress. And in the center, where the two circles overlap, in the middle, we have presence, right? So you can write presence in the middle. The goal, the left circle, emphasizes or epitomizes, I guess, is an ever-present reminder of the clear and specific goal you set when you created your clear vision, right? So remember we talked about totems, anchors, just physical reminders of your goal and why you've set that goal. So again, on the left side, you can write in the circle, it is an ever-present reminder of the clear and specific goal you set when we created your clear vision in the clear vision section. So we're taking the goal you wrote down in the Clear Vision episode and we're making it present and immediate in the real world. So what might this look like? This could look like a note on your fridge or using those, word fridge magnets to write your goal there. It could mean daily notifications on your phone, daily alarms that go off and encourage you and let you know that you're on the way to your goal. It could be a voice note and an alarm that speaks to you, affirmations about your goal at regular intervals. It could be a dream board, right? If you are really into dream boarding, if you're a very visual person, then a dream board is a great presence tool to build in here. It could be your desktop background. So I actually do this. I have a rotating images that I've gotten from Unsplash. Unsplash is a great place if you're wanting to do dream boarding and need some inspiring images. I've took some images from Unsplash, put them all in a folder and have them rotating on my desktop background. And all of them are in some way symbolic of both the goal that I'm aiming for and the why behind it. Again, so if you're writing a romance novel, you could go find a bunch of really romantic pictures online, put them all in a folder and make it make a carousel for your desktop background. And all of this is Googleable. If you're like, well, how do I do that? Go Google it. Go Google, how can I create a, rotating photos in my desktop background? So essentially, this part of the Venn diagram, the goal, is anything that you can visually and physically remind you, oh yeah, I have a goal to finish my novel by August or whatever that clear vision is. You also really want to make sure that your goal kind of presence tools are also related to your why. So you can relate them again to your actual specific goal. So again, if we're using the example of I'm going to finish my novel by August, that would be your specific tangible goal, right? But why are you writing? Why are you wanting to write this novel by August? What does it mean to you? What does it represent? And so you may also have one thing for me that I've been meaning to set up. I've been procrastinating a little bit, but I really want to get some photographs of my grandmother and my great-grandmother and put them on my desk so I'm reminded of my legacy. I'm reminded that I am a daughter of very, very strong women who created a lot in their lifetime, and I need to carry the torch. And maybe your grandmothers couldn't. Maybe there were systemic injustices that prevented your ancestors from achieving any sort of goal. They could have been oppressed or enslaved or in some way disenfranchised from living a full, free life. And maybe part of your why is to be able to take advantage of the fact that you have these liberties and privileges now, and you want to honor their legacy and honor the fact that they came before you and carved the way so that you could have these freedoms. And so that would be maybe a little bit about the why. And the why doesn't even necessarily have to go that deep. It could be because it brings me joy, you could have a little heart necklace that you put on your desk to remind you that you write because it brings you joy. Whatever your why is and whatever your clear vision is, you can create totems and anchors and physical reminders of these things so that your goal and your why behind your goal is just as present as that dirty dish in the sink, right? All right, so now let's look at the right side of the circle or right side of the Venn diagram, the progress circle. So the progress circle emphasizes a tracking system that keeps the chain of your progress, again, present and real. So there's some real juicy brain science behind being able to visualize in a clear way how far you've come. It's really motivating to, quote unquote, not break the chain. They actually call this in habit science a habit principle of not breaking the chain is super, super motivating for your brain because your brain is like, ooh, I don't want to break the chain. And they use this in ways to make apps really addictive. So if you've ever used a workout app or a language app like Duolingo, which I love Duolingo, they use this don't break the chain principle to get you to keep using the app. So they know that the human brain does not want to break a streak. So they know that by creating that habit tracking system that you're going to keep coming back to their app every single day. And I can attest to the fact that I'm a huge procrastinator when it comes to learning languages. And I started learning French on Duolingo. And I will tell you that the don't break the chain on Duolingo is super, super effective. And I love that they have a little grace period that they call like freezing your day. Like if you miss a day, it'll like freeze for you before it totally, but if you miss the second day, then it's going to like clear out your chain and you have to start the chain over again. Again, which for some people can be deflating, but for me, I just do my best to not break the chain. And the thing is, the really cool thing is that you can create this same effect in your writing life. You are just as intelligent, just as capable of creating this in your writing life. And how could you do this? This could be creating a paperclip chain. You can go out, buy like a bunch of really colorful, fun paper clips, and every time you write for 25 minutes on your novel, you add a paperclip to the paperclip chain. This could be a button or a gem jar. So one of my clients and I have been experimenting with button jars and gem jars. So for me, I went out and bought a lot of colorful gems from the pet store that you would normally put at the bottom of a fish tank. And I just thought they were really pretty. They look like little jewels, right? And every time I work on something that's towards my goal for 25 minutes, I can drop a gem in the gem jar, right? Or I know my client was using buttons. She'll drop a button in the button jar. You could do this with money too. You could do it with coins. Like every time you work for 25 minutes on your novel, you can drop a quarter in your writing jar. And maybe by the time your goal is done, you can go treat yourself to a nice meal or to a brand new journal or to something really fun to emphasize how far you've come, right? You get to empty that coin jar, which is really cool. You could also do what Jerry Seinfeld does. So Jerry Seinfeld uses just your regular printed calendar, a regular like calendar you can hold in your hand, not on your phone. And every day that he writes a joke, he writes an X on his calendar. And his whole mantra was, don't break the chain, don't break the chain. Again, like I always encourage that if you do break the chain, please give yourself grace because we don't want to be beating ourselves up. But it's all about, again, getting back up, starting that chain again, and then saying, oh, wow, look how many X's are on my calendar. This has worked really well for a couple of my clients who like kind of that analog calendar style. Another way you could do this is creating a rubber band ball. Again, same thing as like the paperclip or the gems. You can go get a bunch of colorful rubber bands or a rubber band in your favorite color. And every time you write for 25 minutes, you add a band to the rubber band ball. And eventually that ball is going to grow and grow and grow. And by the time you have a finished novel, you're going to have a really big ball and you're going to get to like say, this is my novel ball, which is really fun. My computer just went on my screensaver while I was reading my script there. Okay, so another thing you could do is you could do bullets in a bullet journal if you're a bullet journaler, or you could get one of those really big wall calendars and do the Jerry Seinfeld X's, or you can do hearts instead of X's if you don't like X's. So there are 10 gajillion ways that you can set up I'm going to actually call it a progress system because I have a little bit of a weird relationship with the word tracking. It sounds very corporate to me. Sounds like we're going to track your number of sales and we're going to track your number of hours that you're in the office. It's like, no, we don't want to like track. We want to show progress, right? Our brain really loves seeing progress. That's why something like a rubber band ball or X's on the calendar can really, really be motivating. All right. And so doing these two things together, having physical reminders and totems of your goal all throughout your daily life, right? All through the kitchen and your car and your bedroom and your bathroom and your office. Again, you don't have to go overboard, but just start with a couple. By doing that, you're keeping your writing project as front and center as the dishes in the sink or your work emails, right? And your work tasks. Then by making a physical display of your progress, like a gem jar or a paperclip chain, in a way that feels good to you, you're also showing your brain that you're capable of showing up for your writing. You're giving your brain physical evidence that you're doing the thing. And you're using the don't break the chain principle for habit formation, which is what actual habit-forming companies like exercise and weight loss and language apps actually use to get people to use their apps. And this is because we hate breaking the winning streak. It's much harder to skip a day of writing if it means you're going to break your awesome streak. All right, so let me just take a quick sip of tea here. And then I want to move into a really important disclaimer. So the presence principle must be tailored to you, right? Like I said before, there are a million gajillion ways you can put your writing project front and center in your life so it doesn't get pushed to the back burner. Just one goofy thing I thought of today was you could get a custom pillow made or a custom couch cover or anything that has your writing goal for the year on it, or has an inspirational mantra that relates to your why, or you could have a picture of your grandmother sewn onto a pillow so you're always reminded of your legacy. And that could be one of your presence anchors, your presence tools, right? You could literally think of doing this in a million different ways because there are a million different ways that we physically engage with the world. And so please, please practice the presence principle in a way that sparks joyful feelings for you and doesn't make you feel like there's a school marm standing over you with a ruler reminding you that the big book report is due on Friday, right? I have a lot of stuff and baggage from my school days and feeling really stressed that homework was due. And I hated having deadlines for homework. I always pushed against it. Even though I was, a really good student and really smart, I still had a lot of baggage and a lot of resistance against deadlines specifically, right? And so for my presence principles and things like that, I have to make sure they're really kind and gentle with myself because I don't want it to feel like I have this mean teacher waiting for me to hand in my work, because that's going to suck the joy right out of your novel, right? All right. So again, the school marm vibe is not the vibe we're going for. So make sure your presence tools are meaningful and connect to why you're writing this story in the first place, why it's meaningful to you, and please don't weaponize your presence tools to beat yourself up. This is even more important when it comes to tracking your progress. And I actually don't even like the word tracking, again, to repeat myself, because again, it sounds super corporate. It sounds super like we're going to track your sales and calls and things like that. And I'm not here for that vibe either. So maybe I'll eventually come up with a different word than tracking. But again, please don't use tracking your progress against yourself, and really look for a progress system that feels good and helps you watch your journey grow. Again, I just think the idea of a gem jar or something that you can add to joyfully. Maybe if it's even a chia pet, maybe you water your chia pet every time, or a plant every time you work on your writing, so that the life of the plant is tied to the life of your novel. Ooh, that's one I just thought of today. That sounds really fun. Although I don't want your plant to die if you need to take a break from your novel. All right. And so it's not going to feel, we want this to feel good and not like you're weaponizing this process against yourself. It's here to help you. And that is why the next episode is all about compassion. So the best thing that's going to help you not weaponize the presence principle against yourself is the next step in the wheel of joyful writing goals, which is compassion. So in the next episode, we're going to discuss why compassion is probably the most important ingredient in goal setting. It's so easy to start beating yourself up, letting that inner critic rage and having this happen on your writing journey. It's so easy to beat yourself up. And we really, really want heaps and buckets and boatfuls of compassion towards ourselves if we want to reach our writing goals in a way that feels joyful and makes us want to start fresh once we actually reach the finish line. Because I don't know about you, but for me, it's not worth it to finish a novel or finish a story or finish any writing project and then come to the end and realize, oh my gosh, that felt like total hell. That felt like torture. Why would I want to be a writer if that is how it's going to feel, right? So we really want to add compassion because compassion is going to be the ingredient that helps it feel more fun, more joyful, and again, less like a torture chamber. All right, so now it's time to take this work with the presence principle even deeper. I love podcast episodes and digital trainings, and I also know it's super easy just to listen and not actually integrate anything that you've learned and put it into action. So in the workbook for this episode, I've included reflection questions on presence to help you choose your presence tools so your goal is always front and center and you feel like you're making juicy progress toward finishing your soul story. Go ahead and get your workbook at writeforjoy.co/joyful-goals-2023. And if you've already signed up there, then you'll have the workbook in your email. If you have any trouble accessing the workbook, email me at renee@writeforjoy.co and I'm happy to help. I am so honored that you're joining me for the Joyful Writing Goals series, and I'll see you in the next episode all about compassion. See you there. I hope this message was inspiring to you and you're ready to tap into flow and release the stories tugging at your heart. I encourage you to share this episode with a creative or writerly friend or loved one who may need a boost of creative confidence. For more episodes and letters of encouragement like this one, please subscribe below or at writeforjoy.co/subscribe. That's writeforjoy.co/subscribe. Thank you so much for listening and happy writing.